The Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Increasing violence in Israel, STEM learning in Jewish schools, the drama of a family during war, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. At least 5 attacks against Israelis have resulted in death or serious injuries over the course of the past several weeks. The latest deaths came in 2 separate stabbing attacks. 26-year-old Dalia Lemkus was killed in a stabbing in the West Bank settlement of Gush Etzion. Israel Defense Forces soldier Almog Shiloni was killed in an attack in southern Tel Aviv. This comes amid increasing conflict around the Temple Mount, which Israeli Jews are increasingly making efforts to visit. This is generating tension not just between Israelis and Palestinians, but between Israel and Jordan, which is the custodian of Muslim holy sites on the Temple Mount, according to its peace treaty with Israel. Jordan expects all attempts and calls to alter the status quo in the Haram al-Sharif Aqsa Mosque to be stopped, said Jordanian Ambassador Walid Obeidat, adding, "If allowed to continue, it will imperil the treaty." Overall, this activity suggests Israel is increasingly facing turmoil in its security situation, perhaps a tinderbox ready to be engulfed at any moment. And Israel also has its eye on Iran, with a crucial deadline on nuclear negotiations approaching on November 24th. It's a situation that has America concerned as well. The National Security Council's Middle East counselor, Philip Gordon, told JTA this week, quote, "What we are focused on is getting it done by November 24th. Anything after that dramatically reduces the chances for a deal." But internal concerns in Israel's Jewish community are also troubling observers, where TJC has reported many times in the past on the plight of women chained into their Orthodox marriages, or agunot. This week, a new method of keeping a woman from remarrying was struck down in Israel's Supreme Rabbinical Court after she'd been held back from remarrying for 13 years. Shlomit Lavi is unusual in the realm of women who couldn't remarry in the Orthodox world because her husband wasn't refusing to grant her a religious divorce. In fact, her ex-husband has been dead for more than a decade. But because of the ancient tradition of yibum, in which the brother of a deceased husband is obligated to marry his widow, Lavi's in-laws were able to keep her from remarrying for 13 years, claiming that she owed the family funds they'd provided for her late husband's medical care, totaling approximately $35,000 or 200,000 shekels. A compromise was only reached recently when the family agreed to reduce its demand to $3,500. But speaking of family dramas, Meredith Ganzman looks at a new play about a family affected by war.
What if The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, with its picture-perfect fictional version of the Nelson family, had been set during the Vietnam War? That's the premise of David Rabe's Sticks and Bones from the new group on stage now at Signature Theater. The play opens the new group's 20th anniversary season and returns actor Raviv Ullman to the New York stage.
I moved to New York about 4 years ago, specifically to join the theater community. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. You know, it's so big and it's so great and it's so inspiring, and you really don't know where to start. Scott Elliott took a chance on me back in 2012 with Russian Transport, and
he's your guy now.
And he's my guy now, and hopefully, you know, I can be his guy too.
Ullman plays Ricky in the play. His parents, Ozzie and Harriet, are played by Bill Pullman and Holly Hunter.
Exactly.
What is it like having Holly Hunter and Bill Pullman as parents?
Awesome. I mean, not to say anything bad about my parents. I love my parents very much. But it's fun in these shows where you get to explore family dynamics with a new family. And this is a very complicated show, and our characters are all very complicated, and everybody deeps into various corners of their psyche that a lot of people don't explore.
Ricky is the younger son in the seemingly perfect all-American family. Ullman says the way in which Sticks and Bones addresses war's effect on family is very timely.
We're talking about PTSD, we're talking about families trying to uphold family values and keep positivity, and I think that, you know, interesting conversation piece.
For more on Raviv Ullman and Sticks and Bones, tune in to Row J and the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. Education in the so-called STEM fields of science, technology, engineering, and math is a major priority these days. Christian Needon looks at one group enriching those programs at Jewish schools.
An autonomous robot rolls across a tabletop. Looks simple, but a lot of work went into this short trip. And the Jewish high school students who did that work have learned a lot about science, technology, engineering, and math while sending their bots on their journeys. The opportunity was provided by the Manhattan-based Center for Initiatives in Jewish Education, or SIGE, whose high school tech engineering and biomedical technology classes have been implemented at the Frisch School in Paramus, New Jersey, among other Jewish day schools. TJC sat in on Rifki Silverman's class, where she was teaching bioengineering to second-year SIGE Tech program students, one of 6 SIGE-related classes for 9th and 10th graders taught by Silverman, who talked about how 4 years of SIGE programs at Frisch have impacted her students.
They're learning by doing, and they're learning critical thinking skills, they're learning problem-solving skills. It is opening their world.
These 10th graders have already developed the software and electronics to allow their robots to move about the room, aided by ultrasonic distance sensors that allow the robot to perceive its environment and turn around before hitting an obstacle. Today they were working on remote controls and transceivers to guide the robots.
So we have a transceiver in the remote and a transceiver on the car, which both connect to each other using radio. And once we turn the little joysticks over here, it sends a message to the transceiver, and the transceiver reads the message and tells this, depending which way it should turn.
But the process comes with a fair amount of trial and error.
We have one wheel that goes faster than the other, and we've been looking for like a few weeks to find out why one is going faster than the other, and it really just doesn't make that much sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to program the faster wheel to go a little bit slower, and by doing that we'll make the wheels go at the same speed. So like sometimes there's just problems that you can't really fix, but you have to be like patient and find different ways to go around them.
Such problem-solving skills have made SIGE Tech classes grow in popularity across the country, according to SIGE Vice President Judy Leibovitz.
So we have basically schools in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida, Los Angeles, and I can't tell you that a day doesn't go by that I don't get a call. Can we have the SIGE Tech course? It does not exist. It does not exist in public schools yet. There are robotics courses, there are electronics courses, there are programming courses, but there are no courses that incorporate all 3 areas into one course.
Frisch 12th grader Renate Langer took the SIGE Tech course as a 10th grader and is now applying solely to engineering schools for college, with MIT as her top choice.
I'm now the only young woman from this school who is applying solely to engineering schools, and I think that it presents this unique opportunity where there's this need for more women to go into STEM.
To see more from the Frisch School's SIGE Tech class, please tune in to the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Finally, on this week's episode of Up Close, we'll look at how we recover stories and characters from our pasts. The story of King David is one we have to dissect in many ways to try to get at some notion of truth and determine what lessons we can gather from it. Rabbi David Wolpe explores the controversial figure in David, the Divided Heart. First-time novelist Stephanie Feldman turned her scholarship on the character of the wandering Jew into the threads of her debut, The Angel of Losses. And then, much-lauded novelist Anya Ulanich never published the second novel she wrote. Instead, she wrote and illustrated a graphic novel that is very much about recovering the character in oneself, Lena Finkel's Magic Barrel. Here are some of the highlights from my interview with Rabbi David Wolpe. You explore in the introduction the idea that there's a bit of a personal exploration for you as well.
Well, in some ways, although I like to think my life is a lot calmer than the biblical David, but yeah, you feel a connection with your namesake, certainly, and as I wrote the book, I did see bits of connection, but I think that's more because David is such a universal character that my guess is there's almost no one who can't find a bit of themselves inside of him.
So I'm going to wonder about that aspect, the universal character. Like at one point you specifically discuss whether you add up all of his actions, could he not be seen as a bit of a narcissist?
Yeah, I can't imagine a charismatic leader who doesn't have a touch of narcissism. I think that probably goes with the territory. At the same time, here's a guy whose accomplishments were pretty astounding, and so I think you have to give him enormous credit for unifying the South and North, founding Jerusalem, and also doing something that very few kings managed to do in that time, which was dying in his bed, as opposed to, having been assassinated by his enemies or his children.
Well, that's not a whole lot to aspire to.
No, I suppose not. Yeah. Although if you're king, it's a lot to aspire to. Yeah. But David also, he is known as the precursor of the Messiah. He hands the kingdom off to his child. He has, as I said, some remarkable achievements to his name, although he lived in a brutal time and could be a very brutal man.
You can see the full episode of Up Close on the Jewish Channel on cable. You can also listen to the full audio of Up Close as a podcast, available on iTunes or in your favorite podcast player. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: Time Warner Cable Channel 1640, Iowa Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Cox Cable Channel 1, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and on Comcast on the on-demand menu on premium channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.